Okay, so we're back here on video number 15.
Of this enormous ability to enact reform and
Not that enormous.
sure, but totally by your point that like it's important that AI and robotics drive productivity improvements, drive GDP growth, but why not just directly go after the things you were pointing out, right? Like the tariffs on certain components, or whether it's like permitting.
I'm not the president, and very hard to cut things that are obvious waste and fraud, like ridiculous waste and fraud. What I discovered that it's extremely difficult even to cut very obvious waste and fraud from the government. Because the government has to operate on like who's complaining. Like if you cut off payments to fraudsters, they immediately come up with the most sympathetic sounding reasons to continue the payment. They don't say please keep the fraud going. They say they're like you're killing baby pandas, and we're like meanwhile there's no baby pandas are dying. They're just making it up. The forces are capable of coming up with extremely compelling, sort of heart-wrenching stories that are false, but nonetheless sound sympathetic. And that's what happened. So it's like, perhaps I should have known better. But I thought, wait, let's try to cut some amount of waste and fraud from the government. Maybe there shouldn't be 20 million people marked as alive in Social Security who are indefinitely dead and over the age of 115. The oldest American is 114. So it's safe to say if somebody's 115 and marked as alive in the Social Security database, something is there's either a typo, so like somebody should call them and say, we seem to have your birthday wrong, or we need to mark you as dead.
Okay.
One of the two things.
Very intimidating call to get.
Well, so it seems like a reasonable thing. And if like, say, their birthday is in the future, and they have, a small business administration loan, and their birthday is 2165, we either, again, have a typo or we have fraud. So we say we appear to have gotten the century of your birth incorrect.
Or a great plot for a movie.
Yes, this is when I mean by ludicrous fraud. This is what I mean by ludicrous fraud.
Were those people getting payments?
So some were getting payments from Social Security, but the main fraud vector was to mark somebody as alive in Social Security and then use every other government payment system to basically to do fraud. Because what those other government payment systems they would simply do an "Are you alive?" check to the Social Security database. It's a bank shot.
What would you estimate is like the total amount of fraud from this mechanism?
My guess is, and other. By the way, the Government Accountability Office has done these estimates before. I'm not the only one who's coming out of this. In fact, I think they did. The GAO did analysis of a rough estimate of fraud during the Biden administration and calculated at roughly $500 billion. So don't take my word for it. Take it a report issued during the Biden administration. How about that?
From this Social Security mechanism?
It's one of many. It's important to appreciate that the government is very ineffective at stopping fraud because it's not like if it was a company like stopping fraud, you've got a motivation because it's affecting the earnings of your company, but the government just print more money, so it's not like you need caring and competence. And these are in short supply at the federal level.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, when you go to the DMV, do you think, wow, this is a bastion of competence? Well, now imagine it's worse than the DMV because it's the DMV that can print money.
So was it not
At
possible?
least the state level DMVs the states more or less need to stay within their budget or they go bankrupt. But the federal government just prints more money.
Was it not possible to cut that? If there's actually $500 billion of fraud, why was it not possible to cut all that?
Because when essentially we actually no. You really have to stand back and recalibrate your expectations for competence. because you're operating in a world where you've got to sort of make ends meet. Like you've got to pay your bills. You've got to
Buy the microphones.
yeah, exactly. So you if you don't have it's not like there's a giant, largely uncaring monster bureaucracy. It's not even and a bunch of anachronistic computers that are just sending payments. Like one of the things that the Doge team did there was, and it sounds so simple, that probably will save let's say 100 billion, maybe 200 billion a year, is simply requiring that payments from the main treasury computer, which is called PAM, it's like Payment Accounts Master or something like that. There's 5 trillion payments a year. Requiring that any payment that goes out have a payment appropriation code, make it mandatory, not optional, and that you have anything at all in the comment field. Because you have to recalibrate how dumb things are.
What do you think?
Payments were being sent out with no appropriation code, not checking back to any congressional appropriation, and no explanation. And this is why the Department of War, formerly the Department of Defense, cannot pass an audit, because the information is literally not there. Recalibrate your expectations.
I want to better understand this half a trillion number, because there was an IG report in 2024.
How? You must why is it so low?
Maybe, but which found that like over 7 years, the Social Security fraud they estimated was like 70 billion over 7 years, so like 10 billion a year. So I'd be curious to see what like the other 490 billion is.
Federal government expenditures are 7.5 trillion a year.
Yeah.
What percentage? How competent do you think government is?
The discretionary spending there is like 15%.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Most of the fraud is non-discretionary. It's basically, unfortunately, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, disability. There's a zillion government payments.
Yeah.
And a bunch of these payments are, in fact, they're block transfers to the states. So the federal government doesn't even have the information in a lot of cases to even know if there's fraud. Let's like reductio ad absurdum. The government is perfect and has no fraud. What is your probability estimate of that?
I mean,
0. Okay. So then would you say that fraud and waste, that the government is 90%? That also would be quite generous. But if it's only 90%, that means that there's $750 billion a year of waste and fraud. And it's not 90%. It's not 90% effective.
This seems like a strange way to first principles the amount of fraud in the government. Just like, how much do you think there is? And then, anyways, we don't have to do it live, but I'd be curious to like see.
I mean, you know a lot about fraud at Stripe. People are constantly trying to do fraud.
Yeah, but as you say, it's like a little bit of a, we've really ground it down, but it's a little bit of a different problem space because we're dealing with a much more heterogeneous set of fraud vectors here than we're.
Yeah, but I mean, at Stripe, you have high confidence and you try hard. You have high confidence and high caring, but still fraud is non-zero. Now imagine it's at a much bigger scale. There's much less confidence and much less caring. PayPal back in the day, we tried to manage fraud down to about 1% of the payment volume. And that was very difficult. It took a tremendous amount of confidence and caring to get fraud merely to 1%. Now imagine that you're in an organization where there's much less caring and much less confidence. It's going to be much more than 1%.
How do you feel now looking back on kind of politics and doing stuff there, where it feels like, looking from the outside in, the two things have been quite impactful. One, the America PAC, and two, the acquisition of Twitter at the time. But also it seems like there was a bunch of heartache. And so what's your grading of the whole experience?
Well, I think those things needed to be done to maximize the probability that the future is good. But politics generally is very tribal. and it's very tribal. And people lose their objectivity usually with politics. Like they generally have trouble seeing the good on the other side or the bad on their own side. That's generally how it goes. That I guess was one of the things that surprised me the most is you often simply cannot reason with people. If they're in one tribe or the other, they simply believe that everything their tribe does is good and anything the other political tribe does is bad. And persuading them is otherwise is almost impossible. So anyway, but I think overall those actions, acquiring Twitter, getting Trump elected, even though it makes a lot of people angry, I think those actions were good for civilization.
How does it feed into the future you're excited about?
Well, America needs to continue. America needs to be strong enough to last long enough to extend life to other planets and to get, I guess, AI and robotics to the point where we can ensure that the future is good. Like on the other hand, if we were to descend into say communism or some situation where the state was extremely oppressive, that would mean that we might not be able to become multiplanetary, and the state might stamp out our progress in AI and robotics.
How do you feel about Optimus, Grok, etc. are going to be leveraged by, and not just yours, any revenue maximizing company's products will be leveraged by the government over time. How does this concern manifest in what private companies should be willing to give governments? What kinds of guardrails should AI models be made to do whatever the government that has contracted them out to do ask them to do? Should Grok get to say, like, actually, even if the military wants to do X, no, the Grok will not do that?
Probably the biggest danger of AI, well, maybe the biggest danger of AI, for AI and robotics going wrong is government.
Interesting.
I mean, the way to think, like people who are opposed to corporations or worried about corporations should really worry the most about government, because government is just a corporation in the limit. It's a government. Government is just the biggest corporation with a monopoly on violence. So I always find it like a strange dichotomy where people would think corporations are bad but the government is good, when government is simply the biggest and worst corporation. But people have that dichotomy. I somehow think at the same time that government can be good but corporations bad, and this is not true. Corporations have better morality than the government. So I actually think it's that is a thing to be worried about. It's like if the government should not, like, if the government could potentially use AI and robotics to suppress the population. Like, that is a serious concern.
I mean, as a guy building AI and robotics, how do you prevent that?
Well, I think that like if you have a limited government, if you limit the powers of government, which is like really what the U.S. Constitution is intended to do, is intended to limit the powers of government, then you're probably going to have a better outcome than if you have more government. So
robotics will be available to all governments, right?
Not about all governments. I mean, it's difficult to predict like I said, like what's the end point, or like what is many years in the future, but it's difficult to predict the sort of path along that way. Like, if civilization progresses, AI will vastly exceed the sum of all human intelligence, and there will be far more robots than humans. Along the way, what happens? It's very difficult to predict.
I mean, it seems like one thing you could do is just say, you are not allowed to, whatever government does, you're not allowed to use Optimus to do X, Y, Z. Just write out like a policy. I mean, I think you tweeted recently that Grok should have a moral constitution, and one of those things could be that we limit what governments are allowed to do with this advanced technology.
I mean, yeah, we can do what I mean, technically, I mean, if the politicians pass a law, then and they can enforce that law, then it's hard to not do that law. You know, the best thing we can have is limited government, where you know you have the appropriate cross checks between the executive, judicial, and legislative branches.
I guess the reason I'm curious about it is this, like, at some point it seems like the limits will come from you, right? Like, you've got the Optimus, you've got the space GPUs, you've got the.
I think I will be the boss of the government.
Or you will get I mean, already it's the case with SpaceX that for things that are crucial to the like the government really cares about getting certain satellites up in space, whatever. Like, it needs SpaceX. It is the a necessary contractor, and you are in the process of building more and more of the technological components of the future that will have an analogous role in different industries, and you could have this ability to like set some policy that you know, is suppressing classical liberalism in any way. My companies will not help in any way with that, or, you know, some policy like that.
I'll do my best to ensure that anything that's within my control maximizes the good outcome for humanity. I think anything else would be short-sighted, because obviously I'm part of humanity, so I like humans. Pro-human.
You've mentioned that Dojo 3 will be used for space-based compute.
You really read my what I say.
I don't know if you know Twitter, but I know Elon. You have a lot of followers.
Dead giveaway.
How do
What if
you
you've discerned my secrets? I boast them while
how do you design this chip for space? What changes?
Well, I guess you want to design it to be more radiation tolerant and run at a higher temperature. So you could, you know, roughly if you increase the operating temperature by 20% in degrees Kelvin, you can cut your radiator mass in half. So running at a higher temperature is helpful in space. There's various things you could do for shielding the memory, but like neural nets are going to be very resilient to bit flips.
Yeah.
So like most of what happens for radiation is like random bit flips. But like if you've got like, you know, a multi-trillion parameter model and you get a few bit flips, it doesn't matter. It's much like heuristic programs are going to be much more sensitive to bit flips than some giant parameter file. So yeah, I just design it to run hot, and I think you pretty much do it the same way that you do things on Earth, apart from making it run hotter.
I mean, the solar array is most of the weight on the satellite. Is there a way to make the GPUs even more power dense than what NVIDIA and TPUs and et cetera are planning on doing that would, you know, be especially privileged in the space-based world?
Well, I mean, the basic math is like, if you can do about a kilowatt per reticle, and then you'd need, you know, 100 million full reticle chips to do 100 gigawatts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, depending on what your yield assumptions are, you know, that tells you how many chips you need to make. But you need, if you're gonna have 100 gigawatts of power, you need, you know, 100 million chips running that are running a kilowatt sustained output per reticle.
100
Basic math.
100 million chips. It depends on. Yeah, if you look at the die size of something like black hole GPUs or something, and how many you can get out of a wafer, you can get like on the order of dozens or less per per wafer. So this is a world where if we're putting that out every single year, you're producing millions of wafers a month. That's the plan with Terafab? Millions of wafers a month of advanced process nodes?
It's going to be some number north of 1 million, I think.
Yeah.
You got to do the memory too.
Yeah. We're going to make a memory fab?
I think the Terafab's got to do memory. It's got to do logic, memory, and packaging.
I'm very curious how somebody like gets started. This is like the most complicated thing man has ever made, and obviously, if anybody's up to the task, you're up to the task. What do you? So you realize it's a bottleneck, and you go to your engineers and like, what is the next? Like, what do you tell them to do? I want 1 million wafers a month in 2030. What is the next? Like, what do you?
That's right.
Do you like call ASML? Like, what is this?
That's what I want.
What is the next step?
That's so much to ask.
Well, we make a little fab and see what happens. Make our mistakes at a small scale, and then make a big one.
Is a little fab done, or is
No, it's not done. People would. We're not going to keep that cat in the bag. That cat's going to come out of the back row. There'll be like drones hovering over the bloody thing, you know. You'll be able to like